Well, hello everyone. This is Fadi, and with me here is David Wood. Yes, I repeat, it is David Wood. I know he may look different, but he is still the same David Wood that we know. The photo might be deceiving because I had a photo of David with the beard, but I myself had to check his ID before we started the live stream to make sure that I have the right guy. Well, David, thank you so much, bro, for joining us. What a pleasure, really, to be able to do this with you. And it's been a while for me to do a live stream, so the two of us were trying to figure out how to even make the connection correctly.
Mhm.
How was life?
Oh, pretty good. Oh, yeah. So yesterday I went and picked up my son from preschool, and he'd never seen me without a beard. I went up there and he just stops and stares at me like I'm a stranger.
Is he the one that looks exactly like you?
Uh, no, my oldest son looks pretty close to me. He looks almost exactly like I did when I was his age, but
Yeah,
the little one looks like a mix.
I hear you. Well, thank you again for taking the time to join me here. I mean, everyone, we're doing really two things today. First of all, we're going to talk about the conference, our CIRA International Conference that will be happening starting on October 14th, 2 weekends in a row. In fact, I'm going to share some slides real quickly. And then we'll talk with David about the session that he is proposing to talk about as well during the conference. And hopefully he can join us for the panel discussion as well, so people can come in and ask questions via the chat, option. And then after that, I want to really talk to David about one of his new channels. I say one of his because I understand that, David, you are putting together a number of those platforms. So I just want to be careful not to say that this is it, in terms of your future projects. And I'll let you elaborate further on that. So, folks, let me share my screen here so that everybody can see what I'm talking about. I think I'll be able to do that shared screen, I hope. If not, then no big deal. I'll tell you at least without the visual about what the conference would look like. So here is what I want to focus on. And we're going to go to the window, and here it is. Yep, shared screen. There you go. So what we have here is that a conference that will start on October 14th, and it will be this time 2 weekends in a row. It's 4 tracks. Every single day is an independent track. So October 14th is going to be track 1, which is the Apologetics track. That's where our brother, Dr. David Wood, will be handy here in terms of joining us along with Jay Smith, Edward Dalcor, Tony Costa. And we will have a panel discussion where there is a possibility of some other people might join us. I don't want to say their names because they are still not non-committal, and I don't want to kind of like make it sound like they bailed out on me. They were clear that they're going to try their best to join the panel discussion. This particular track, it's just what it says. It's Apologetics and Polemics. It's going to talk about ways to either refute Islamic arguments, ways to defend our doctrines. For instance, Dr. Edward Dalcor is going to talk about what he called bullet points Trinity. I love that. I mean, it's like that. I give us a way to respond to the attacks against Trinity, but also confirm the doctrine of the Trinity. Dr. David Wood, I'll let him talk about his topic right now. Jay Smith, as you know, historical criticism of the origin of Islam. That will be the focus. And Tony Costa is going to talk about cults and some features and characteristics that will apply to our main focus. Obviously, we call the conference Loving Your Muslim Neighbor. We are commanded to love our neighbor by our Lord Jesus Christ. Then on the 15th, which is Saturday, same time, by the way, all of them starts at 12 noon Eastern time and finish around approximately 4 p.m. Eastern time with breaks in between. And like I said, there'll be plenary sessions, workshops, and panel discussions. It's almost like the same thing over and over again for every track. Track 2 will be October 15th. That's a Saturday. And that will be to focus on ministry to Muslim women. And we're going to have a number of women who are engaged with ministry to Muslims, specifically to Muslim women. We're going to have some ex-Muslim women followers of Jesus who will also teach from their own experience and about their journey to Christ as well. And hopefully we will learn things that are kind of unique when it comes to ministry to women. Then the following weekend, Friday, October 21st, we're going to have a track that will focus on evangelism to Muslims, whether they're immigrants, students, or refugees, and also discipleship of ex-Muslims and those who come to Christ from an Islamic background. We're going to put the spotlight on the Arabian Peninsula and the Gulf Arab and the Saudis in particular. All of the teachers for the 21st of October are going to be former Muslims from Saudi. That's myself, Brother Nasser, and Brother Andrew, and I hope you will enjoy that. Again, we're going to have plenary sessions, workshops, and panel discussions, but this one is unique in terms of the fact all of the teachers are former Muslims, Arabs from Saudi, followers of Jesus. And we will finally close on the 22nd of October, which is Saturday, with a track on prophecy in the Middle East. I normally make it clear I am not doing prophecy in the Middle East to tell you when Jesus is coming back. He is coming back. We know that. We just want to talk about God's heart for the Middle East, for the region, and signs that his return is imminent. What does that mean in terms of evangelism and loving the Muslims who are the major occupants of the Middle East? And what can we do to really share the truth with them in a variety of ways? We're going to have a variety of speakers. Some will be recording their messages in advance, like basically Mike Bickle. And we're going to have others who will be doing their teachings live. So this is pretty much the overview of the conference. With that in mind, let's now turn our attention to our brother David Wood. David, you gave me a list of topics that you were thinking about, and one caught my attention, and I think that's the one that probably will be interesting, which is the idea of the image of God when it comes to Islam. What do you mean by that? And I'm hoping that that will be the one that you can cover for us.
Yeah, well, it's relevant. The doctrine of the image of God is relevant for multiple reasons, and not just for Islam. It also has a lot to do with ethics and dealing with atheism. And I think the doctrine of the image of God is definitely one of, if not the most underused doctrines in the Bible. I mean, even Christians, if you ask what does it mean for someone to be created in the image of God, they generally have no clue. They haven't studied it. And yet, this is a doctrine that appears in the very first chapter of the Bible with the creation of man, and it's stated multiple times, but you see it running throughout the Old and New Testaments. And I say it's relevant for atheism because, but before two main doctrines spread around the world as a result of Christianity, people were generally pretty confused back in the day. If you said that, hey, I should care about people in China, or I should care about, people in the world, or if I meet a complete stranger on the road, I should care something about him. They didn't have much of a concept of that. And it's actually spreading the doctrine that all human beings have this common creator in whose image we are created, that human beings start to view themselves all as like one group or one category. Again, this is relevant for atheism because a lot of atheists have absorbed certain moral values that ultimately could go back to Christianity and the idea that human beings are created in the image of God. They've absorbed it and they don't know, and they think it's just part of atheism, and it's not. It's like atheism is parasitic, right? It's like sucking the blood out of Christian ethics. So it's relevant there, but also with Muslims, the doctrine of the image of God is extremely important. And it's not something that Muslims can dodge because, as you know, their scriptures affirm the inspiration and preservation and authority of our scriptures. And again, this is in the very first chapter of the Bible, that human beings are created in the image of God. And some of the, various ways this is relevant, especially in the area of apologetics and ethics. I should be clear. I can think of there may be more. I'll have to look them up, but I can think of two passages in the Muslim sources which refer to the image of God, and it has nothing to do with what the Bible means by this. Like Muhammad hears it at some point, And he talks about it, even though he, as is often the case, he has no clue what he's talking about. And his followers think that this now has something to do with, you know, him being consistent with the earlier prophets because they mention the same doctrine and so on. But in Islam, it seems to have more to do with like the shape that Adam is created in, right? Like Adam is created in like the shape of Allah, and then over time, you know, his descendants keep shrinking, and that has nothing to do with the biblical doctrine of man being created in the image of God. And so Islam has a defective view of the image of God and very, very few references to it, certainly not enough to support any sort of ethical system. And this is really connected to why in Islam, I mean, it's a saying, killing you would be a small matter to us, right? We see this from Muhammad's companions. Muhammad's companions are saying this to the unbelievers as a warning. Killing you is a small matter to us. Well, you want to say, hey, why is it killing, you know, your fellow human beings a big matter? Well, because they don't look at you as a Christian or you as a Jew. They don't look at you as human beings created in the image of God. What their book says is you're the worst of creatures. So you're lower than insects. You're not something that's, you know, really that's created in the image of God and is therefore worthy of a certain level of honor and dignity and respect. And so this is connected to how Islam treats unbelievers. You can also make a variation of the Islamic dilemma with this, right? Because you can show that human beings are created in the image of God according to the Bible. This doesn't fit in with Islam. And so when Muslims have to object, they have to say, your scriptures have been corrupted. And then you show them that their book affirms our book. And therefore, if human beings are created in the image of God, then Islam is false because they're contradicting our book. But if human beings aren't created in the image of God, then Islam is still false because it affirms our book, which says that human beings are created in the image of God. So you can use it like that, but also, and for some reason, not a lot of people point this out. When Muslims don't understand the incarnation, if you bring up the incarnation, the idea that God took on flesh and came in flesh as a human being, as Jesus of Nazareth, Muslims look at that as something horrible, something, you know, beneath the dignity of God. God just wouldn't do that. And they'll say things like, well, why didn't he just come back as a monkey or something like that? But notice, if human beings are created in the image of God, and if this has something to do with us being able to reflect God's character, it has to do with other things, but we actually get to reflect the nature and character of God. If us being created in the image of God has something to do with that, well, that makes much more sense of why God could enter creation as a human being who's already made. Human beings are already made to display God's character and attributes. And so if we're created for that, well, that's not the same thing as like coming as a monkey. God is taking on the flesh, entering into creation, taking on the nature of something that was made for that purpose.
Yes, I agree with you. And it is really a complicated topic, like you said, David, even among Christians. In fact, one of the ways that sometimes I try to simplify it for the Christian audience, I should say, is that being made in the image of God and the likeness of God, it's almost, think of it, a vertical responsibility and a horizontal responsibility. Vertically, we represent him on earth as kings, as authority, as priests, if you wish. Horizontally, in his likeness, it's relational. God is relational, and the Godhead, the Trinity, is an excellent representation of that. And then marriage, of course, if you read about that in Genesis 2, is another example of what would look like to be relational, technically speaking. And this really, the reason why, for instance, we called our conference Loving Your Muslim Neighbor. It's like loving everybody, really. I mean, our neighbor is everybody. I love the fact that you're mentioning atheism, because you and I did a video series on the fact that some young Muslims now are calling themselves atheists. They believe in Islam. When in fact, really, I mean, an ex-Muslim atheist is not the same as the atheism that we are used to, for instance, But either way, this topic, the image of God, is going to really be a challenge for them, even when they think about leaving Islam or leaving religion altogether, which is going to be hard for a Muslim, by the way, to leave the idea that there is a God versus someone in the West, maybe, that thinks of atheism, there is no God at all. Any interaction about that or any input?
Yeah, I mean, atheists are different compared, given the various backgrounds they come out of. But yeah, I mean, even you could go around the world and people have absorbed the idea that human beings are important and that, hey, if there's a disaster over here, other human beings who have nothing to do with that and have nothing to gain by helping those other people should do it just because they're people. And it's something that really just, I'm saying this as a former atheist. I had no idea what people meant when we're talking about all human beings being brothers and that we need to be concerned. I mean, think if you're really thinking this, as an atheist, you could say I choose to, or I want to, or I prefer to, or I like to think about people like this. But saying that you should view people like this, right? You should. That's the language of moral obligation. Now, you ought to view human beings as something more than the rest of the animal world, and as having a certain intrinsic worth and dignity. Where in the name of common sense you getting that from on atheism? I mean, you could say it, but where are you getting it from? Like you could say, but human beings are living thing. Well, great. So is a rat. Why should I care about a human being more than a rat? And they'll say, but because human beings are smarter. What's that got to do with anything? Now do we have a scale like the smarter you are? Because you could apply that to human beings as well. The smarter you are, the more we should care about you. And if you're not smart enough, then we don't care about you. So there are just all sorts of problems with having no basis for this doctrine. In Christianity, we and in Judaism, we have a basis for the doctrine of our view of man. The rest of the world has absorbed it in one form or another, but they have no idea where it comes from. And because of that, it's at odds with their beliefs. And the reason this is interesting for atheists is when atheists are talking to us, as you know, and we make a claim, it's prove this to me. And they portray themselves as like the champions of reason and logic, and they don't believe anything without evidence. And yet you can start digging around through their beliefs, and you find that they're just not very consistent in applying that, right? Because if you start asking them why, let's say Jeffrey Dahmer was wrong for eating people, why was he wrong? They're going to make some claim about, well, you don't do that to human beings. And then you start getting into why. There's no justification in atheism. And so what you find is that they believe things. Pretty much every atheist you'll ever run into believes a lot of things that make no sense on their worldview. They believe them because they've never applied their skepticism towards those beliefs. And they don't realize that they're actually inconsistent with their beliefs about the universe and what human beings are and so on. And so it's really, Christians need to be equipped with this doctrine and what the Bible passages are and what it means to be created in the image of God. And I think you could use it like as, an offensive tool in apologetics, that you can actually expose ideologies for having no basis for thinking that human beings are created in the image of God, to show that those worldviews are actually defective and can't support any sort of moral system that would include that sort of value for human beings.
Yeah, and it sounds like, and I say this because you studied philosophy of religions, and you probably came across this many times, even before and after. You know about the idea of metaphysics and how the ancient gods, really did not look at humans favorably. I mean, they actually ended up killing some humans or using them for their own gains. And it sounds like the God of Islam, to me, sometimes behaves in such a fashion. He does not really look at humans as some, creation or creatures that he loves. He looks at them as if they annoy him, he's going to eliminate some of them. Why do you attack me? Or why are you against me? And so on and so forth. And I can remember what Socrates says: a life that does not a life that is not examined is not worth living. Do you think there's any connections here between those philosophies and what's going on with the world of Islam, for instance, and atheism, Muslims leaving Islam, technically speaking?
Yeah, this is connected to all sorts of things and all sorts of problems that we have in the Muslim world. So you take a doctrine like the image of God, and I mentioned earlier that according to the Quran, Jews and Christians and polytheists are the worst of creatures. So we're lower than pigs, we're lower than dogs, we're lower than insects, according to Islam. And that drives the idea that killing us is a small matter. But you brought up the idea of what God thinks about us and so on. And the Quran says that Allah has no love for unbelievers. So in Islam, how ethics works is that you first love Allah and do what Allah says, and then Allah can love you in return after that. So Allah can say, hey, this guy really impresses me. So, I really love this guy. But before that, Allah has no love for unbelievers. This versus Christianity, where God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, and where we love God because God first loved us. It flips everything. But notice this is really tied into Islam's view that all human beings are nothing but slaves before Allah. So this comes from the Quran. Says there is no one who approaches him as anything other than a slave. So the highest relationship you can have with Allah is a slave to master relationship versus the father to his children relationship that you can have in Christianity through Jesus Christ. And this is absolutely foundational to ethics and morality in the world, in that if you already believe that if you believe that you're a child of God and God loved you before you're not doing what's right in an attempt to earn God's love. God already loved you. And so the relationship is more similar to the relationship between a human father and a child, in that when my sons were born, I didn't say, okay, now let's see if they earn my love, and I'll see how they turn out in 20 years. And if they're doing a really great job, then I'll love my kids. Wasn't like that. I love you because you're my kid. And, if you mess up later, I'm still going to love you because you're my kid. Versus if someone were to buy a slave, you don't automatically love your slave. You could, in theory, come to love your slave if you have a really great slave, and that slave has been, just done everything you want for years, never disobeyed you. You say, wow, I really love this slave. But you don't start out loving your slave. He's just something you bought. Well, Islam teaches that that's what human beings are like. That we're all just slaves, and there are good slaves, and there are bad slaves. And so if you're a bad slave, Allah he wasn't connected to you. He's not your father. And so if you're a bad slave, Allah just has no love for you, and there's nothing wrong with killing you, because Allah certainly doesn't care. You're one of the worst of creatures. And so the point here is that theology matters. You have lots of people who think, oh, Muslims believe this, and Christians believe that, and Jews believe this, and Hindus believe this. And but at the end of the day, you got good people and bad people and so on. No. You can have people absorb ideas about other human beings that actually affect those people. And you can have people who, they could have been good if they'd had some good ideas about other people, but they might end up, wanting to slaughter them in the name of Allah, because now they're trying to impress Allah with what good slaves they are and so on. And so this is basically all connected. Really, I don't think that Christians can even understand the gospel very well without understanding the concept of the image of God. So this is it's relevant to Christians, it's relevant to ethics, it's relevant to Islam, it's relevant to atheism, and for some reason, it's just not considered a terribly important doctrine to study in Christianity.
Absolutely. And I hope everyone is enjoying this discussion. And you will learn more, of course, when we have our brother during the conference on October 14th. And he and I did do a video series on this, by the way. It was a short one, but hopefully everyone can subscribe to our channel, CIRA International on YouTube channel, CIRA International. Now, speaking of that, tell us a little bit more about your latest and newest channel that you just launched.
Well, for anyone who hasn't been following, a few months ago, I said I was going to be deleting my channel and then changing my relationship with social media. And what I said I was going to do, I was going to make sort of a central hub that's off the site, and that, I post stuff there and interact with people there and have a communication network there, but also would be using, I'd still be using all the social media platforms. I said I'd be using them more than before. For some reason, people read the title and said, David's leaving YouTube forever. And they thought that's what I'm doing because of the title of the video. I'm deleting my channel or something like that. So anyway, yeah, the idea was not to leave YouTube forever. I mean, I love the idea that you can, share information with people around the world on these platforms. The idea was to restructure, because the way things were before, I had one big giant channel and YouTube kept shutting it down temporarily. I never got banned or anything, but they would shut me down a lot, like 1 to 3 times per month, sometimes for weeks at a time, and so on. So it was I realized I could reformulate and do things differently. So now I'm making channels that are divided up by content and, on different platforms. So a certain kind of content is over here, a certain kind of content is over there, a certain kind of content is over there. And it defeats the problem of having the one big channel that keeps getting taken down. So now if I've got a channel over here, a channel over here, a channel over here, and then the same thing on multiple platforms, if for some reason they strike a channel or something like that, they're always mistaken. It's never I never violated any actual rule. It's just they have bots and then they have people who don't like me and so on working at their platform, so they keep taking you down. But the idea is now, if when they mess up and take down something and take down a channel or something like that temporarily, then even though it may take me a week to get that fixed, I'll still be in other places, plenty of other places. So it won't grind to a halt. With that said, I think it was yesterday I made my new Apologetics channel live. So we have a channel, Act 17 Polemics. That's for, things like the Boom Boom Room and exposing Islam and so on. I have a philosophy channel, Apologetics Underground. Philosophy Underground philosophy channel. And then my Apologetics channel is Apologetics Roadshow. I just launched that. So different kinds of content are no longer going to be all in the same spot, because it makes it an easy target. It's going to be divided up. So my apologetics content is going to be on the Apologetics Roadshow channel.
Where can people, some are asking, where can they go and find whether the new channels or any future ones that you're going to be launched? Is there like a central platform for them to go and click on these links and be able to watch these videos?
Yeah, well, I've been focusing on building certain pieces of this as it's coming together, but act17.com. So Acts, like the book of Acts, 17.com. That's the website we built as one of the hubs for information to find stuff. I haven't started posting there yet. I'll be posting there probably starting tonight and so on. But yeah, if you go to act17.com, you'll be able to find where the other stuff is.
Very good. Well, I hope everyone caught this, and we will definitely be helping out in any way we could, of course, to bring knowledge about any of these new channels. Like yesterday in the community section of YouTube, we did mention about this Apologetics Roadshow channel, but everybody knows Act 17 Apologetics. That's the main name of the previous channel for David. Therefore, you can go just to act17apologetics.com.
No, just act17.com.
Just Act 17. It's even easier. act17.com, and you'll be able to find David's new website. And I know he's building. And by the way, folks, building these platforms is not easy. People think, David, that you can just take things magically and make them just into an operating platform without any problems. It takes a lot of efforts and money and design and technical issues and so on and so forth.
Oh yeah, no, I thought I would, because I came up with a plan in my mind. Matter of fact, I came up with the plan last year of what I was going to do about, all the YouTube censorship and so on. I'll build this and I'll build this, and it's like, okay, you got these sites that are the central hub where everyone finds everything. Then we need a communication network, and then we got an app where people can get notifications on their phone and this and that, and then I'll have all these YouTube channels with content spread around, and then from there it'll go on Facebook and Twitter and so on, and then. Yeah, in my mind, I think that's going to take a few days, and no, it takes it's a bit more work than I thought. But once it's up and running, it will be almost completely unbannable, right? Because the YouTube channels I'm building, they're kind of like disposable in nature. In other words, if they start striking those two, no problem. We can just keep rebuilding wherever we want, because the most important thing is. And this is the most important role of YouTube, is how are you connected to the people who watch your stuff, right? That's why people need YouTube. Because notice, as far as hosting a video, you could do that almost anywhere. But YouTube is where you're connected to with the people who actually watch your stuff. So the main idea is actually coming up with a replacement communication system where you're in contact with your subscribers that is not dependent on YouTube. Because once you have that in place, then notice I could say, hey, this video is no longer here. They took it down. It's over there. And you have a way of telling everyone where it is and so on. But anyway, once that's all up and running, just trust me, it's going to be like a million times better than relying on YouTube for everything.
I'm sure. And by the way, full disclosure, David did help me connect with one platform where I have transferred all of my videos. And now all of my videos, as they are being published, they end up going there as well. It's kind of like a preemptive strike, kind of a step that I'm taking just to be on the safe side. I mean, we've learned valuable lessons through what David had to go through. He was on the front line of all of this. And really, he was passing on a lot of knowledge to all of us. And I myself, David, is going to launch a political view type of a channel in a different platform. And as you know, if I do it on YouTube, best of luck with that. I mean, they wouldn't even let it survive for 1 minute because they're not going to like anything I'm going to be saying. So, again, this is an excellent philosophy, and we appreciate all the efforts that you're doing. If you don't mind me taking just 1 more minute, David, to go through the conference one more time with everybody. Some people are asking me about my health. Thank you for prayers. I'm still recovering from the recent surgery that took place about a week ago. And, I walked into the operating room with the idea that one thing is going to happen. I walked out with a completely different thing. I have an incision about 4-inch long with 12 stitches, not to mention, of course, the mess that comes with that and all of the infections and other things that we have to manage. So I appreciate everybody's prayers, but today I'm feeling much better than a couple of days ago. And, it is part of life. It's the thorn in the flesh. We thank God for that, of course. Now, let me give you guys one more time another look at the conference. By the way, our what we call the early birds registration discount ended, but I appealed again to the team. I have a team, by the way, folks, that works with me. It's not like my own decision. I appealed again to the team, and I'm so thankful that they have extended it for a few more days. So if you want to take advantage of at least 30% discount right now, go ahead and do so, folks, right away. But the registration for the first weekend will end on October 12th because it starts on the 14th. That will give us enough time to test and make sure everything is working well. And then the second weekend, the registration will end on the 19th, which is also the same theme, 2 days prior to the start of the conference. Let me share my screen one last time about basically the information concerning the conference. So this is the overview. It is 4 days, 2 weekends in a row. The first weekend, the weekend of the 14th and the 15th of October, which is coming soon in about 2 weeks from now. And the second weekend is the following weekend, October 21st and 22nd. However, every day is an independent track. How people can also take 1 weekend at a time. You can register for 1 weekend at a time if you like to do so. Every single track will start on 12 p.m. or 12 noon, New York times, Eastern time, and ends around 4 p.m. with breaks in between. You can come in, join us at any time. Most, not all, but most of these sessions will be recorded, and only those who registered will receive the recording. and the recording will never be allowed to be made public. So rest assured of that for safety and security of everyone involved. This is track 1, which is the apologetics one. And here is the lineup of our speakers. Dr. David Witt is with us here. We have Brother Josh Husney, Dr. Jay Smith, Edward Dalcor, Dr. Tony Costa, and few other surprise guests that says they may be able to squeeze in an hour to join us for the panel discussion side of things. Then track 2 on the 15th will be Ministry to Women. Only Sister Karen Bijani was willing to allow herself, her photo, to be made known because of her vibrant ministry. And we're so thankful for what she does, her and her husband also. And at the same time, some of the sessions in this track will be recorded, others will not. Some of the teachers are ex-Muslim, female ex-Muslims who are followers of Jesus. So if you're interested in that type of ministry, please come and join us. This is track 3, which is the following weekend on October 21st, taught by former Muslims from Saudi, followers of Christ. All of us are Saudis. So hopefully you'll end up joining us for this one, which deals with discipleship and outreach strategies. And finally, this is the last one where we will be talking about prophecy in the Middle East, or God's heart for the Muslims in the Middle East. We keep it focused on that. We have the likes of, Brother Ron Cantor, brother or senior pastor now, Daniel Seckham in Australia. He might basically record his simply because the time difference. By the time we start the conference, it will be like 3 a.m. his time, so it won't be fair for him to be live with us. Chris Anderson will be joining us, and also Mark Davidson, just to name a few. So thank you again, everyone, for your willingness to join us and promote this with others as well. And once you register, like I said, you will receive the recording for that particular track that you've registered for. Brother, thank you so much as always. If there is anything else you want to share with us before we close.
Nope, we're good.
All right, everyone, you've heard the man. So thank you so much. We appreciate you. God bless you. Take care. And I will see you soon with another promotion with one of our other speakers. This is Fadi over and out. God bless.